Want to turn your quilt binding from boring to adorable in one easy step? Maybe you just need to add some Ric Rac. It's quick, it's easy, and it might just become your new favorite binding tip. So come with me and I will show you how to do it. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. This pattern, which I know you can't see all the way right now, is called Don't Fence Me In. It is available on my website. I do have a bundle of charm pack patterns that you can get together. So this is fun to use with your charm packs. I put this together with a scrap pack of Ruby Star fabrics from Moda, and it even has some cute little dog hairs on it. Pre-dog haired. Can you imagine? Okay, so what we're gonna do, you're just not gonna believe how simple this is, but it adds so much visual interest and just a little splash of fun to your quilt. So you've got your Ric Rac. I have 1/2 inch Ric Rac. You could do this with significantly larger Ric Rac. I don't know how it would do any smaller than this because you still want to be able to see it once you've bound your quilt, but you know, play with it, see how it goes. Okay, so we're just gonna baste this onto our quilt. You don't want to go too far, like I want my little edges of my zigzags to be slightly inside of my outer raw edge right here. Just slightly, because, and I'll show you why. I have an example why that matters. So this was the first project I worked on playing with this Ric Rac, and let's see if I can find where it is. Right here is where I was butting up my Ric Rac right to the raw edge, and you just don't see quite as much of it as like over here. You get a little bit of a better view of the Ric Rac, and so I just started pulling it away slightly from the edge, which gave it more visibility. So, okay, so what we're gonna do is you can go ahead and pin this on. Let's see, I'm gonna pin it onto the whole side of my quilt. So I'm gonna put my pins facing this way so that as I'm sewing down, I can pull them out easily. And this is, you know, we do our best. Don't make yourself crazy trying to get everything exactly 1/8 of an inch or so away from the edge. If I was to measure, I would say, yeah, about 1/8 of an inch away from the raw edge. Just kind of like that. And one thing that you do want to remember is that this Ric Rac has no stretch. Your quilt, by the time it's quilted, it doesn't have a lot of stretch, but it does have a smidge. So be careful that you're not pulling this really tight or anything like that. And also that you're not pulling your quilt really tight. You just kind of want these to play nicely and kind of loosey-goosey. Still flat, you know, we still want these flat seams, but we just don't want anything super tight or rigid. So I'm gonna go ahead and pin this all the way down my quilt. And when you get to corners, there's no turning corners with this. You're just gonna snip it off just like that. So put it all the way down to the end of your quilt and then just snip it off. You might want to do that after you've sewn it, because there might be some adjusting that happens as you sew it on, but we're not gonna be playing with corners or turning corners or anything like that. I just don't think it's necessary, and it looks totally fine if you don't. So, okay, go ahead and pin the whole one side of your quilt, and then let's keep going. All right, let's go ahead and sew this Ric Rac onto our quilt. I have my stitch width here at 1/4 of an inch. That's not gonna be exactly down the center of our zigzag. It's gonna be slightly to the side, but that's okay. I really just need the Ric Rac to be stuck into place so that it doesn't create problems while I'm binding it moving around or anything. So, and then I also lengthened out my stitch length a little bit to 3.5 millimeters. I honestly don't know if there's a practical reason for that. I don't know, it felt right. So I'm going with my instincts here. So we're gonna go ahead and sew this down. A true basting stitch would probably work, but I wanna make sure that every one of my little zigzags is tacked down, so I don't want to go too wide. Okay. There's my iron beeping at me in the background. And it is a little bit, there we go. I'm trying to maneuver my camera and my quilt here. So you can see we're going just to the right of our center, the center of our zigzag, and that is on purpose. All right, I'm going to stop and show you what it looks like before I keep going so that you know what yours should look like. See, we've just tacked that down and it's looking pretty good. You know, we got kind of close to the middle there, but it's okay. It's all going to look great in the end. So you're going to go ahead and do this for all 4 sides. And remember, this is my little tail here. I'm just going to trim him right there. And when I come and do this side, just sew right over it. The corners aren't going to be a problem. They're going to be covered up by your binding. You're going to get that good mitered corner and everything's going to look good. So I'm going to do this to all 4 edges of my quilt so that you can see how we then attach the binding itself. I'm going to use a 2.5-inch binding, but just because there's a slightly more bulk with the zigzag, or I'm sorry, with the Ric Rac, but I think a 2.25 would be just fine. I just wanted a little bit more wiggle room in case this feels a little bulky. So yeah, go ahead and sew on your Ric Rac and I'll meet you back here with the binding itself. Okie dokie, here we go. We've got this on all 4 sides of my quilt. You can see I just overlapped these and cut them. So it's not difficult at all. Now we're gonna do our binding. And I'm doing black because I wanted it to really, I wanted that Ric Rac to stand out on with my black. Okay, so how I like to make quilt bindings is I've got my 2.5-inch strip folded in half lengthwise. I attach to the back first, and then I'm gonna fold it over and stitch it down on the front. Now the benefit of doing that on something like this is that I'm gonna be able to see what I'm doing while I'm stitching down on my Ric Rac, right? I'm going to use black thread, so it's going to be really discreet here and you're not going to see it, but you are going to be able to control where it's sitting here against the Ric Rac. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch it down on the back all the way. And for a full quilt tutorial, I'm going to be making one of those very soon. So if you need a full quilt binding tutorial, go ahead and I'll link that when it's ready. But so yeah, just go ahead and sew this on with a 1/4-inch seam all the way around on the back, and then we'll bring it to the forward and I'll show you how to do that. All right, here we go with the back of our binding is all sewn on. You can see here, I've sewn that on to the back, okay? So this is our folded edge that we want to turn over to the front of our quilt. And you can see that when we stitch it down, we're gonna get this really cool effect of the binding and then our little Ric Rac sticking out. It's almost like little monster teeth. I kind of love that. So a lot of people like to use these clips to clip binding down, or you can use pins like this. You just throw in a pin. Sometimes I just go wild and free and I just wing it, but either way, you can do either one to kind of pin things into place and then stitch it down with my sewing machine. I'm just going to go like 1/8 of an inch from the side, this folded edge right here, and that's just going to tack everything down and make it look so pretty. So let's go ahead and do that, and I'll show you how I do that on my machine. All right, so here I am. I've got this loaded into my machine, and see where my needle is at going down. Whoops, there we go. Just right over the edge of my folded edge here. Okay, I'm gonna pull out this pin. Now you can see where the benefit comes from pinning or clipping it, but I do like being able to adjust as needed. There. Okay. So I'm just making sure that this black seam is covered because that's kind of, I don't know, extra visible. But once that's covered, we're good to go and sew it down. All right, so I'm just going to repeat this all the way around my quilt, turning my corners totally like normal. You're just going to, well, I'll leave that for the tutorial on binding, but if you are new to binding, go ahead and find a normal quilt binding tutorial and basically any of them are going to work for you. So, okay, we're just going to go ahead and stitch down the rest of this and then I will show you the finished product. All right, you guys, what do you think? I am in love. I think that this the cute Ric Rac looks like little monster teeth. My daughter even said the same thing when she walked in, and I love it. So remember, I used a 1/2 inch Ric Rac. That's my daughter. I used 1/2 inch Ric Rac. You could certainly make this bolder and a bigger boom, you know, if you used larger Ric Rac to show you, you know, to do the binding. But I think it turned out really fun. I'm really happy with it. And it just added a little bit of flair, a little bit of excitement to a quilt that, you know, otherwise was cute, but now it's just a little bit cuter. So I hope this tutorial was simple, and I hope you will go ahead and subscribe to my channel, and we'll have more tutorials coming soon. I'll talk to you guys later.